Okay, today we're predicting the Indianapolis Colts record. So looking at the roster, they definitely do not have the worst roster. Obviously, the big question mark are how well Anthony Richardson will do, but the rest of their offense looks fine. They obviously have Pittman, Alec Pierce, Isaiah McKenzie. The offensive line does have some cornerstones like Kelly and Nelson. But Jonathan Taylor, not sure what's going on there, but Jonathan Taylor is like a top 10, top 5 running back, and I'm doing this prediction based off he plays. Their defense definitely has some pieces. They still have DeForest Buckner, um, Kwity Paye, Leonard, Kenny Moore, but defense, they have some pieces, but the rest of their starters are kind of mid. So you have your first game versus the Jaguars. First game I think it's gonna be Anthony Richardson's first. Believe he's gonna be the Week 1 starter. Um, and the first ever game for for their head coach. So I'm not sure how well their head coach is gonna be. But Jaguars have a much better offense with Trevor Lawrence, Calvin Ridley, etc., and a better coach. I think the Jaguars defense is average. But that's better than the Colts. So I'm giving it to the Jaguars in Week 1. Then yeah, week 2 versus the Texans. I think Texans are in pretty similar boat. Other than a little bit more improving. Texans is going to be Anthony Richardson versus C.J. Stroud. Um, Texans. Texans, I think their coach is also new. I do think that the Texans will win because they have slight home field advantage, and it's because it's a divisional game, so really hard to predict. So I'm still giving the Texans though. Then you have week 3 versus the Ravens. Ravens usually start off the year pretty hot, especially if they're all healthy with Lamar, um, J.K. Dobbins, Odell, and with John Harbaugh. Ravens defense is always going to be good, especially with home field advantage. And I just don't see Jonathan Taylor taking off and winning this game for them, so I'm giving it to the Ravens. Then you have week 4 versus the Rams. Rams I think are complete like dog. They're really bad. Um, Colts, I think Jonathan Taylor, if he plays, he should just run right over the um, Rams defense as long as he runs away from Aaron Donald. The Rams offense could be potential problems, especially with Stafford and Cup and Sean McVay. But Colts have big home field advantage. I just don't trust the Rams defense whatsoever, so I'm giving it to the Colts here. Then you have Week 5 versus the Titans. Titans. These two teams usually split. Titans still have Derrick Henry. They got D Hop. And the Titans do have a good, not great defense. Both these teams, I think, do have some talent, but are missing some pieces. But I think Titans have a better coach in Mike Vrabel, so I'm giving it to them. Then you have Week 6 versus the Jaguars. I for some reason these teams also split. I don't see the Jaguars sweeping the Colts. So I'm actually giving it to the Colts here. Then you have Week 7 versus the Browns. Browns offense, I think, will get the job done. They have, as long as Deshaun Watson bounces back, they have a great O line, Nick Chubb. Um, Amari Cooper, but I think Jonathan Taylor will go off, especially since I do not trust the Browns defense, and I think with the Colts defense will just do just enough, so I'm giving it the Colts. Then you have Denver versus the Saints. Saints are coming off a mini bye. Saints, another team with a good defense that I think will definitely cause problems for Anthony Richardson. Both and the I trust the Saints offense more than I trust the Colts defense, and vice versa. So I'm giving the Saints here. Then you have Denver versus the Panthers. Um, Panthers have home field advantage. It's going to be Bryce Young versus Anthony Richardson. I think the Panthers have a better defense and a better offense, as long as they can stop Jonathan Taylor. So I'm giving the Panthers here. Then you have Denver versus the Patriots. It's a Germany game. I trust Bill Belichick over Sean, whatever his last name is called, to get his players ready for Germany. So I'm giving the Patriots here. Then you have a bye, and then you play Tampa Bay. Um, I think both these teams are pretty similar. Both questions at quarterback, Baker Mayfield and Anthony Richardson. I do think the Bucks have a better skill position players. But Colts have home field advantage, and they're coming off a bye, so I'm giving it to the Colts here. Then you have the Colts versus the Titans. Like I said, they usually split, and I gave the Colts Titans the first game, so I'm giving to the Colts the second game. Then you have Denver versus the Bengals. I think the Bengals offense with the trio wide receiver Joe Burrow, Joe Mixon, it's going to be too much for the Colts defense to handle. And even though the Bengals got slightly worse in their secondary, I don't think Anthony Richardson will capitalize or Jonathan Taylor, especially since the Bengals have a pretty good run defense. So I'm giving the Bengals here. Then you have Denver versus the Steelers, and Steelers are coming off a mini bye, and I think Mike Tomlin won't fall into this trap game. Um, Mike Tomlin, he's an experienced coach, and I think Steelers defense will shut down, cause too much problems for Anthony Richardson. So I'm giving it the Steelers here. Then you have Denver versus the Falcons. Run game I think will be too much for the Colts defense to handle, and so far the Falcons defense has looked good during training camp, but the Colts offense is not good in general, and Falcons have home field advantage, so I'm giving it the Falcons. Then you have Denver versus the Raiders. s- Both these teams are not that good, but I think Raiders have more talent on offense with Devontae Adams, Jimmy G, which is better than Anthony Richardson. They still have Josh Jacobs, and even though the Raiders defense is kind of trash and Colts have home field advantage, I'm still giving it to the Raiders here purely off Devontae Adams. Then have Week 18 versus the Texans. I do think Colts and Texans split, and I gave the Texans the first game, so I'm giving it to the Colts here. So in the end, I have the Colts going 6-11, 3-2 in the division, 4-5 at home, and 2-6 away.